The podcast you are about to listen to is an account of the movies which befell a group of horror fans, in particular, Tara Garwood and her intrepid friend, Matt Lolich. Had they lived very, very long lives, they could not have expected, although they would have wished, to see as much of the mad and macabre as we are to see in those movies. For them, an idyllic summer movie became a nightmare, and they loved it. The movies that they watched were to lead to the creation of one of the most terrifying podcasts in the annals of American history. The Scary Movie Project.
Hey, this is the Scary Movie Project, the podcast where we talk about scary movies. I'm Tara.
And I am Matt, and it is wonderful to be joining everyone this evening, this afternoon, wherever you end up time of day you are listening to this. Quick question, more of a statement. Who will survive and what will be left of them in the seminal film, The Texas Chain Saw Massacre, or as I like to call it, TCM, or possibly just Chainsaw? That shows you how my level of comfort with this film. I could go on for days, but I'm going to stop and I'm going to let you jump in and guide us through this wonderful piece of cinema history.
So before we get into that, though, you guys just heard our new intro to the podcast, voiced by the inimitable Joshua Saxon.
And we love him for that. Thank you, sir. It's wonderful.
We love him. We love him especially for that.
Yes.
He is a dear friend of mine from high school, and he's extremely talented. He's also narrated several audiobooks that you can find on Audible. I listened to a collection of horror short stories that he narrated, and he is like
awesome.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Just the right amount of spooky. He's so good at it.
So for those that know the movie and that we're stealing that, I mean, he's not John Larroquette, but he's pretty damn good.
He's really good.
It's pretty good.
And you can find him and his work at www.saxonaudio.com.
Right on.
So now I think we can go into the movie Texas Chainsaw or Texas Chain Saw Massacre?
The Texas Chain Saw Massacre.
But like, is it chainsaw or is it chain saw?
Is this like an argument of Market Basket?
It's
Market
like
Basket
both.
Or Market Basket?
But it's like both. Like on the poster, it looks like it's one word, but then like in the movie credits, it looks like two words.
Well,
I'm very confused by this, you guys.
Well,
somebody solve this for me.
I can try to help you, considering how there was, let's just say, underworld issues involved in this movie. We can get into that later.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that afterwards.
So that could be part of what's going on. But anyway, yes, it is. It is a movie that is truly near and dear to my heart.
Yes, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It's from 1974.
Yes, it is old.
It's before we were both born.
Oh, much before my time. Yes.
I won't tell you how much before my time, but it is before my time. Directed by Tobe Hooper.
Yep.
And
Tobe
written.
We reviewed Poltergeist, which Tobe Hooper did as well, right?
So this was this his first film?
Yeah. So
or just an early one?
Well, he had made a movie called a student film called Eggshells before this. But this is, don't forget, he came from University of Texas. Mm-hmm. So this is like homegrown movie to him. There's more to it than that, but this is a lot of it. Yeah. So he had really done. He was in his early 20s when he made this movie.
And this was I read that this was made for like, at the time, like $70,000 or something.
If that.
And then the domestic box office was like $30 million.
So, yeah. So, you
guys, in the 70s, it made $30 million.
So I'm a big fan of any of these. A lot of these movies we talk, a lot of stuff. I mean, these movies are made for nothing, and they end up making a ton of cash. I mean, that's the reality. Now, the thing about this film, like I said, we can get to this later, but there were some stealing money and money laundering issues and different things that went on with this movie. So We can get to that later, though, I guess.
Yeah, we can get to that later then. So we'll start with the opening voiceover.
John
which
Larroquette
is,
from Night Court.
yes, John Larroquette. Very cool. Did you know what he was paid for doing this narration?
I don't think he was paid. I think he just wanted some credit or something, didn't he?
He was paid 1 marijuana joint.
Was he? Okay. There's lots of
So he
marijuana in that
says.
movie.
So he says he was paid 1 marijuana joint.
Hey, you know what? If that's what you want, and there was marijuana and played a big part in that movie, I think. Yeah, that's pretty funny. Nice.
Yeah,
I
so
like it.
there we go. I love right after the opening narration and like text on screen where they have those camera flashes. It's such
that awful noise. So for those,
but it's such a great way to reveal the horror.
Well, it's like a crime scene because So if anyone's wondering that what you might think is an awful noise, it is a tuning fork banged and rubbed against the piano wire.
Oh.
That is the that you get in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
And I have more to say about the soundtrack.
I know far too much about this
later.
movie. I know way too much about this movie. I have learned more about this movie, or I should say, I've probably forgotten more about this movie than most people would ever learn. So it's
including me.
It's kind of sad.
I'm
but anyway.
sure. So we have these great camera flashes that sort of reveal the like horrific things,
fingers and the skulls.
Yeah, fingers and skulls and scary things.
Yeah.
And then we're hearing a radio report about grave robbing and a body that was strapped to a monument in the graveyard and just all this bad news. Jeez.
And it's like this guy, it's like that covered muffled voice, and he's
Yes.
the sheriff in Muerto. I love Muerto County. Great name.
Muerto County.
Great name for where it is in
Death
Texas.
County.
Where it's just like you start the movie, you're taken to this place. So if any of you, shameless promotion, if any of you want to read my website, I wrote a review on this film like last year. And it takes you to this place of like, I know right away, this is a bad place. Like this is a bad place I'm going to right now. And I don't really want to be here. And that's the way it starts. And that's like, it's perfect. Yeah.
Everything on the radio is horrible news.
So it's awful.
Like everything is really horrible stuff happening.
Yeah.
And then, so there's these 5 kids, 3 guys and 2 girls in a van. Let's see, it's Sally,
Yep.
her brother Franklin, who's in a wheelchair.
Okay, so far so
good. Kirk.
Yep, good.
Kirk and
Good.
Pam, who I believe is his girlfriend.
Yep.
And then Jerry.
Wow, nicely done.
I know, thank you. And I think Jerry might be Sally's boyfriend, but it wasn't really made fully clear. I didn't feel like.
If it was, I've never caught on to it. So, and I've seen it 760,000 times.
Yeah, so they're riding along in their van, and
Could it be more
Pam
70s, by the way?
Right. Oh my God, their van is so 70s. And Pam is reading stuff about the Zodiac, also very 70s.
Talking about Saturn is in retrograde.
Yes, Saturn's in retrograde, guys. It's very bad news.
Or I don't know what planet she said something. I don't know.
And they basically they're going to this cemetery in Muerto County because Sally wants to know. They're going to stay at the grandfather's house, but Sally wants to know if her grandfather was dug up. So they stop at the cemetery to try and find out. They get back in the van.
By the way, cemetery is real.
Oh.
You can visit the. I'll talk about that later.
You can?
Oh yeah. So Texas
very cool.
Chainsaw Massacre is one of the places I have not done my tour of yet, which I'm dying to. And unfortunately, I passed up a chance to go to Austin years ago. That's where. Well, I'm getting too deep, but
No,
yeah.
go ahead and get deep.
No, it's real. I mean, you can go to that cemetery, and you can go to that, I think, grave that they put the corpse on top of. Most of the
still
stuff
is like actually a real
yeah, so
one.
it's all in Austin. A few places are outside it, but it's pretty close. And the house, I'll talk about it later. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
Sure. So they get back in the van. They pass a slaughterhouse, and Franklin is being gross and telling them all about how the cows used to get slaughtered and how they do now. And yeah, and he goes into detail.
Yeah.
He really goes into detail. And then they pick up this weird hitchhiker.
Love him.
Oh my God, he's such a weirdo.
I think we just picked up Dracula.
Yeah. And so he talks about how he used to work at the slaughterhouse.
Oh, he's my brother works at the slaughterhouse. It's really good.
That's actually a pretty good impression.
They don't use that gun anymore. Yeah. Oh, that guy's the best.
And he shows him but he shows him pictures of the cows he's killed, and he's telling him more gross stuff. And then he takes Franklin's knife and he cuts the palm of his own hand and then gives it back.
He sure does.
Why? I don't know. It's just, he's
crazy.
weird. He's a weirdo. And he has this huge camera. You guys, it's a Polaroid.
It's great.
So amazing. It has the lens on the front that stretches out. Yeah, the accordion lens.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
With the
it's
actual
so good.
individual flash cues. Remember that?
Yes, and you had to change it each time.
Oh, those were the days.
So he takes a picture of Franklin. He tries to get him to buy it, and when they say no,
it's a good picture. You can pay me now.
It's a good
$2.
picture. You can pay me $2. So he pours gunpowder on it. He sets it on fire, and then he attacks Franklin, and he cuts Franklin's
right
arm.
on the arm, hard too. He really cuts.
Yeah,
him.
and you see it, you see the cut.
Yeah.
So and then they get rid of him. They're you're out, buddy.
I take a picture.
And then
it's a real good picture. I love him.
Pam reads Zodiacs for Franklin and for Sally, and they're not good. Just just
right.
a little preloading here. They are not great. they're not gonna have good times. And hey, you know what? Turns out they're correct. They do not have a good time in this movie, guys, just in case you were wondering.
Actually the complete opposite of a good time.
In case you couldn't wait to tell, they do not have a good time.
Yes.
So they stop at a gas station because they're out of gas, and they ask about the old Franklin house. Yes, Franklin's first name is Franklin. Their grandfather is also Mr. Franklin.
Right. But remember, and of course the cook, as he's known, his that's when we meet his character for the first time.
Oh, I was calling him the gas station owner. Okay, the cook.
Yeah, so he's known as the cook.
We'll call him the cook.
He's awesome. We don't have gas. Transport won't be by till later. And then you got some. I love one of my favorite lines is we got some good barbecue here. Well, I bet you got some good barbecue.
Yeah.
Now the one thing I love the dude who's just sitting in that chair. And he just rolls out the soap bucket whenever the cook walks by.
Yep.
And just starts washing the car. And then he, bangs on the car and he walks away. And the dude follows him. And then he goes back to the car and the guy gets up again and just follows him back and forth every time. And just starts washing the windows. This guy's life is so beyond simple. He just washes windows on cars. It's great. I love it.
Literally all the guy does in the whole movie. It's
fabulous.
Fantastic. So he warns them. They tell him they're asking about the Franklin house, and the owner the cook warns them not to go messing around the old house.
Those girls don't want to go messing around that old house.
Yeah. Don't go messing around the old house.
Tonight's my night of impressions, by the way, of characters.
It will be.
Yeah.
It will be your night of impressions. So then they see that the hitchhiker painted a symbol on their van with his blood.
Yeah, I think he just wipes it, and they're just being crazy,
You think they're just being paranoid?
I
couldn't
personally
tell.
believe
I didn't see anything in it, but
I've also never really researched it, to be honest with you. I just never really bothered with it.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really tie in much to anything else.
It doesn't.
So they continue on. They go to Franklin and Sally's grandfather's house. This house is spooky AF, you guys.
Come on, we're in the middle of nowhere, Texas. What the hell do you expect?
It's creepy.
Yes.
It's all run down and crazy, and
it's
everyone
barely
goes upstairs. Yeah, it's barely standing. They all go upstairs, leaving Franklin alone. He gets all pissed. Yeah, he does a whole bunch of because he's pissed that they left him alone downstairs. Oh, it'll be fun time, Franklin.
Yes, have a good time. And I love those random shots. Not random. Every minute or so of just tight shot of a zillion spiders in the corner of the house, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And they make noise. There's so many spiders. They actually make noise, guys.
Yeah. And well, I mean, sure,
spiders don't make noise.
It's Foley effect, obviously.
I had to check with my husband. I was like, that's a lot of daddy long legs. And he said, yeah, so many they make noise. And I said, they don't really make noise though, do they?
You
right?
know what?
I didn't think they did. And he was like, no, they don't make noise.
That's a good, I've never even thought about.
He's like, no, they don't make noise. And I was like, okay, I didn't think they did.
But for the movie,
but they're all it's
yeah, it's right. It's
it's so gross.
You have to, right, because it has to get your senses going to make you be like, oh, that's disgusting.
Yeah,
right.
it's so grody.
Right.
So while he's down there alone, Franklin finds a weird pile of like animal pieces and like some bones hanging in one of the doorways.
Yep.
Which is just another thing that should really tell them, you know,
it's time to go.
besides if the Zodiac readings weren't enough, this should tell them, get the heck out of here. There's something wrong.
Roll.
So now Kirk and Pam, they decide to go down to the beach.
Well, remember, they asked if it was so hot that Franklin said there used to be a swimming hole down.
Yes,
Right.
yeah, there used to be a swimming hole down there, right? So they're going down there.
That's
they're
what
like,
you
we're
have
gonna
when
go
you
to the
live in
beach.
Texas. You have swimming holes.
That's right.
Yep.
So maybe it's not really a beach, but I'm gonna call it beach because that's
Swimming hole.
I don't know what else to call it. They go down towards the swimming hole.
There you go.
And they hear a motor running. And so they want to go to the nearby farm to see if they'll sell them some gas.
Right.
And there's a generator, but they doesn't seem like anyone's at home. And first they get up on the porch of the house, and Kirk finds just a random tooth with a filling in it.
Yeah.
Guys, with a filling in it.
Right.
Animals don't get fillings, okay? Like, it took me a second, then I was like, oh, crap.
Right.
Animals don't get fillings.
No, not so much.
That's creepy.
Right.
So he calls out and he edges into the house and
Remember he hands it to her. He says, she's
Oh,
sitting
yeah.
on the stairs and he goes, I got something for you. And he hands it to
gets
her.
it for you, and he drops it. Yeah. And so she wanders away a little bit, and he goes into the house, and he hears a pig squealing, and he goes to investigate.
Sure does. One of the
And he
great
gets
scenes
down
in
the hall,
movie.
and whack! Leatherface just whaps him in the head with a big old hammer. And we're calling him Leatherface if you haven't seen the movie, guys, because he's this huge guy who wears a leather mask over his face.
It's not so much leather. It's people's
It's
faces.
It would be leather. That's
All right,
leather.
yes, it's fair enough, but it is a mask
It's a
made
skin
of.
that has been tanned. It is leather.
So he has multiple people's faces. He has the pretty woman mask, the killing
Yes.
mask, and anyway, yeah. But okay,
Yes.
you're right, and yeah,
He has 3 masks, I think.
I believe it's 3. Yes.
But so, by the way, so he hits him in the head with a big hammer. By the way, you should know, guys, all the weapons used in this movie are the real thing. They did not have like prop weapons.
Hell
They
no,
were
they didn't have any money.
the real thing. Huge ass sledgehammer.
Real chainsaw with the chain out of it.
Chainsaw, real. It's all real.
So that scene you're talking about is one of the iconic horror scenes of all time, by the way.
It was just over so quick.
Well, because what got you is when, it's one thing when he falls in, he trips over the doorway at the ramp, and
Right.
the camera pans up, and he's got the hammer, and you crack, you hear that sick sound. They did a great job with the sound of it hitting his head.
Mm-hmm.
But when he slams that door, and it boom, that is like that moment of, oh my God, that gets you. Like, what the hell is about to go on behind that door?
Yeah.
That's
like,
when your
what is
imagination
happening
just
here?
takes off. Yes.
Yeah, and it's very.
It's
I mean,
amazing.
all of the murders are like that, where you don't really see not as much as I expected to see.
Well, that's part of what I'll talk about that later. What makes the movie so good?
Yeah, they leave a lot to your imagination. So Pam now, she's been sitting outside a little ways away. She goes to look for Kirk because he hasn't come out of the house. So she also goes into the house.
Sure does.
And she hears a chain rattling, and then she trips over a chamber pot in this grody ass room.
That room is one of my favorite scenes, though. Oh man, that's
It's all like chicken feathers and stuff all over the floor, and bones and gristle, and ooh,
and it's that
that
almost inhuman form that's made out of all different bones.
yes,
It's up there like that. It almost reminds. I'm trying to think of some other scene or something I've seen that in, but yeah, when she trips in there, yeah, and they play that's not even music, that score they made.
Yeah,
And that rattling sound, and you're just like, oh, it's like that opening like cemetery, like I've got to get out of here. This is not good. This is not good. This is a bad place.
yeah. And there's a chicken in a bird cage,
Sure
which
is.
they focus on.
Yeah.
And yeah, at first I was like, why are we zooming in on the damn chicken when there's all this gross shit in here? But I think it might be to show that you aren't any different than the chicken.
Yeah.
Like,
It's just
you're
chaos.
You're both just a source of meat.
Pretty much.
Like, so yeah, there's feathers and there's bones and it's really gross. And she gags and like tries to get out of there. But Leatherface,
she almost gets out too.
Yeah, she almost gets to the door, and Leatherface grabs her.
He's just like
pulls her
screaming.
back into the room that he had pulled Kirk into,
Uh-huh.
and hangs her on a freaking meat hook.
Sure does. Done, by
And
the
then
way,
he-
with pantyhose, a rig made of pantyhose.
And then I read that they put maxi pads. They padded the cord with maxi pads.
Yep. They did a whole bunch of whatever they could
yeah.
to make that work, to hang her up on that thing, and it looks
Yeah.
pretty damn real though.
Yeah, and so once he's hung her on the meat hook, then he starts the titular chainsaw to carve up Kirk right in front of her.
Sure does.
Cut to wind pump,
Yes.
which is sort of a windmill, but it pumps water. For those of you who are not from the middle of the country.
There you go. Thank you for that. So there you go. Thank you for that.
Oh yeah.
It's our education. That's good.
I learned that because of this movie. I was like, what is this windmill thing? And we looked it up. It's a wind pump. And it's because it's so flat out there that you can't rely on the water to roll downhill to get it to different places. So you have to pump it.
Yeah, I mean, look at all
get
the
it where you
old. I
want it
mean,
to
yeah,
go.
they got a generator running their house. Look at all the old
Yep.
stuff they've got. Yeah, they're.
Yep.
I mean, they're totally subsistent. Really, I would say.
So there you go. Little middle of the country trivia for you there.
Very good.
So back at Grandpa's house, Jerry is teasing Franklin about the hitchhiker coming to kill him.
He's coming to get you, Franklin. Yeah, he's going to get you. Yeah.
And Franklin's looking for his knife. He's really worried about that knife that he lent Sally while they were driving the van to cut food with. Sally gets in the van to look for it. Jerry decides to go down to the beach to look for Kirk and Pam because it's been a little while. And Franklin's like super worried about the guy following them. Like he's afraid the hitchhikers
He's freaking out
after him.
big
He's
time.
he's already freaking out like from the word go. So Jerry goes down to look for Kirk and Pam, and he gets to the farm and he's calling out to see if anyone's there, and he's about to leave, but he sees the blanket that Kirk and Pam had. And so he goes into the house to look for them, and he goes into the for lack of a better word, the carving room.
The killing room.
The killing room. There we go. And nobody's there, but he hears knocking. So he opens the freezer and Pam pops out.
Oh, man, that was a crazy scene.
And it was freaky.
I know. First time you see it, you're like, oh, my Lord. Is she dead? Like, is she?
Yeah, she's still alive. She's
Right.
still alive. And actually, I read that she maintains that she thinks Pam was a fighter, and she got herself out of that freezer and got away. That's what the actress thinks.
Okay.
She's decided that.
Yeah, they
she
never
thinks
showed
Pam
it.
Got away.
So yeah,
they never showed her die.
you're right.
So she thinks Pam got away.
We actually never saw any of them technically die. So yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah, keep going.
So then Jerry's freaking out because Pam just sat up in the freezer, and Leatherface cracks him over the head and puts Pam back in the freezer.
Just runs in squealing and just busts
Just
right.
boom.
Yeah, and then shuts
Yeah.
the fucking freezer.
just whap.
So good.
So now it's dark.
And then
This was all in the day, and then now it's dark.
Remember, Leatherface has that moment too of like, it's almost like it's like his personal moment with him. Real quick, remember where he like runs back into the room of bones, and he's kind of or back in the kitchen. He's kind of just sitting there, and you see that look on his face, and he realizes like he's kind of freaking out. Like these people are trying to escape. Is he doing a good job? Is he doing his job right? Is he killing? Like he's so simple, and he's so just devolved. That he's a human, but not really. But he just he knows enough. Like, is he doing his job properly? Is he doing what he's supposed to? It's that moment of like, with a regular character, it'd be like that moment of fear. Like, am I doing what I'm supposed to do here? But
Right.
we get it with this half monster, half human kind of person. It's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd forgotten about that moment. But yeah, definitely. So so now it's dark and Sally and Franklin are worried about the others, that maybe they got lost. Franklin thinks they ought to go back to the gas station, but he's got the flashlight. Sally wants the flashlight so she can go look for him. Franklin won't give it to her. So he wants to go with her. So she's got to push him around through the woods.
And she tells him, like, I can't do it. Like, I'm not going to be able to do it.
Like she's like pushing him around through the woods. It's obviously really hard. And they're calling for Jerry. And Leatherface shows up.
You could not send a text message then.
Yeah, no, you could not send a text message. You could not
happening.
call them on the cell phone. None of
Not
that.
happening.
So Leatherface shows up and he just chainsaws the shit out of Franklin.
So I love that scene because they're just kind of dry. They're pushing through the dark, and you can tell, nothing's lit because they didn't have any equipment. And it's just that moment of he's like, "Oh, Sally, hold on, I hear something," and instantly, just the chainsaw revs up, and all it is the flashlight shot of Leatherface, and he just, oh man, just carves him up.
He carves him up, and Sally runs away, and he's chasing after her, and the woods are really dense,
And they're real.
It's these like dry branches, which apparently scraped her really badly. So some of the blood on her costume was actually hers.
Her hair's caught up in it. So I was gonna wait till so. I met her, Marilyn Burns, the actor. I met her at a Monster Mania show a long time ago. She is sadly passed on. She's gone now. But she was in her probably 60s or 70s at the time when I met her, and I asked her a million questions. And yeah, she talked about stuff like that. She was like, there were no rehearsals. There was none of that stuff. This was just happening. Like, we were just doing this. We went into the woods at nighttime, and we just shot footage.
Yeah. I also read that none of them met the guy who played Leatherface until
Gunnar Hansen.
their scene with him, which was generally their death scene.
Which is kind of cool because it's more
For most
genuine.
of them,
So yeah, but she was.
Yeah.
She said what you saw is what you get.
But that would scare me to work with an
hell yeah.
actor like that who I hadn't really met and didn't have like full trust with yet. That would be
True.
really, really nerve-wracking, I think.
I think so, but even I didn't know that was interesting. I didn't know that when I was talking to her. But yeah, fields full of marijuana that they were running through. I mean, this is just the middle of nowhere. Yeah, Texas. What you saw is what you get. So yeah, Gunnar Hansen, I met him too. He's actually sad thing about this movie is a lot of these folks are gone now. Actually, I think half that cast has died. But Gunnar Hansen was a stage theater actor, like a method like Shakespeare actor. And he just needed a gig. And I think he knew Tobe Hooper. And he was like, here, you play a maniac in a mask. Okay, sounds good. He's huge. He is like 6'5" in real life. I met him, and he's like terrifying. And he's the nicest guy in the world. But he's a very thoughtful human being like himself, actually. But playing this part, it's interesting. He's famous for it forever. He never really did anything after this. He did like theater stuff again. He really didn't want to be this movie guy after that. But it's like playing Michael Myers or playing Jason. They don't speak. These aren't, speaking roles. These are like body language roles and things like that. And yes, the chainsaw was real. Now they took the chain out of it. But that thing was running. That was a running chainsaw with gasoline that he was running through the woods chasing people with. That's still very dangerous.
Yeah, definitely.
And this is in the middle of Texas.
We'll talk a little more about
that.
that later. Yeah.
But yeah, meeting those two people was amazing and getting to know those stories because this movie became like mythical for me after a while. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So she's been running away from him through the woods. She runs, of course, straight to the house.
I mean,
trying to find help. Right.
She doesn't know. She hasn't been there yet.
It would make perfect sense if it wasn't his house.
Right, but she doesn't even
which
know
she
that.
doesn't know. Right. So she goes inside and she goes upstairs and she finds a dead man and woman.
And a dog.
Oh, right. And the dog, too. Yeah.
Mummified folks just sitting in a room in the attic.
They're just all mummified. Yeah. And so he chases her upstairs and she jumps out a window. That's window number 1, guys.
Don't forget to get in the house. He has taken the chainsaw and he's cut through the
door.
door.
Oh, yeah.
That will come back later.
Through the door. He had to cut through the door to get into the house. Because she has locked the door behind herself.
And he's like, I don't need the keys. I have a chainsaw. I get through anything with this.
So he chases her upstairs. She jumps out the window. She keeps screaming like that's not going to help him locate her. Although I guess if I was really being chased by a maniac with the chainsaw, I might just keep screaming too. But
I'm
I
100%
keep
sure you would.
thinking, shh, be quiet. Maybe he won't know where you went. Be quiet.
Nope.
And she's just going. So she gets to the gas station and she tells the cook he's there, and she tells him he's got to call the police, but he says he doesn't have a phone.
I ain't got no
So
phone
he says,
here.
it's okay, it'll be okay. I'll go get the truck. We'll drive there.
And then
I'll go get the truck.
one of my favorite, one of the scariest scenes in the movie is right there, where he leaves the little back room with the door open. And the shot is real simple. It's just a shot of her in her utter panic, and then a shot back to the empty door and looking at the dark outside.
Yep.
And she's just sitting there. And to me, that still, that like creeps me out. Like, when is this psychopath going to come out? Because you can't hear the chainsaw anymore. You're like, what happened? What's going on? Like, that is a scary scene to me.
So this is the moment right after the door thing. She looks over at the barbecue.
Uh-huh.
And
Love that too.
that's the bit that gets me where you go, oh, God.
He told you earlier he's got some real good barbecue.
Oh, God, that's the barbecue. Oh, no.
Yep. Makes you think about eating barbecue.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, that scene is a well-done, spooky scene, I feel like.
Yeah, so he...
She's so vulnerable, that door just open like that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like leaving the door open. Oh, yeah. So the cook comes back. He's got a rope and a potato sack, excuse me, and she freaks out. And he beats her senseless with a broom.
And he's laughing the whole time, telling her to shut up. Oh my God, I love it.
He beats her senseless with a broom, and he breaks the broom on her. And
definitely the funniest scene of the movie.
Ties her up. He puts the sack over her head. And as he's driving back, he just keeps poking her with what's left of the broom handle and cracking up.
And yes, he's entertaining himself. He's so happy with himself at that moment.
Oh my God, he's talking to her, and he's giggling and chuckling and poking her. He's crazy.
Very.
I mean, as if we didn't already know.
Yes.
So they come across the hitchhiker.
But this is when you also realize he's in on this, because of course you had no idea before. Right.
Yeah, that's when you find out, oh, he's one of them too.
Yes.
So we come across the hitchhiker as they're driving. He's driving her back to the house, and the cook yells at him.
He's part of the family.
Going over to the graveyard. Yeah, so they're all part of the family. You stupid idiot!
What I tell you, messing around those cemeteries. Yeah.
Yeah. So now we've realized. First, we realize, oh, the cook is in it with Leatherface, and then we realize, oh, the hitchhiker is in it with the cook and Leatherface.
Yeah.
All within the space of 2 minutes.
You're right.
So they get back to the house, and the cook then proceeds to yell at Leatherface.
My favorite line in that movie.
Ruining the door.
That is when he gets there and he stands there and he just looks at him, steps back, and look what your brother did to the door.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love it.
So he yells at Leatherface. He makes sure none of the kids got away. He beats them for ruining the door.
All he does is just run around hitting people. Yeah.
Yeah, he just hits them.
Yeah.
And then he tells Sally, "Oh, take it easy, and we'll have dinner for you right away."
Mm-hmm.
I am concerned about this, guys. At this point, I am like, they'll have dinner. What?
Where are we going with this? Right.
I don't want her to have to eat this dinner.
Or become dinner.
Or become dinner, yeah. So they bring down Grandpa, the dead man who she saw earlier, the mummified guy.
Love Grandpa.
They cut her finger, stick it in his mouth.
Well, don't forget, preceding this, remember,
wait.
Preceding this, they do try to have a meal, remember? And
I thought that was after this.
No, Grandpa's the last part.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
They try to have that meal, and it's the most demented family dinner in the history of cinema. And she's tied to a chair. She passes out. Then she wakes up. She's tied to a chair, made of human body parts, I might add, which I will explain a little bit more of later. But yeah, it's just, and they're just looking at her and staring at her. And you get these moments of just these intense, I don't know what lenses they were using. I'd like to know. These shots are so close of literally her eye, and they are so close.
Close-ups.
You are looking at blood vessels inside of her eye. They are so close. And these just crazy, film school shots that you would not make in a regular movie.
Yeah.
And it is just the most bizarre scene. And they're howling, and he's sitting there going, howling like a pack of dogs.
And they really, those those extreme close-ups seem kind of out of place with the rest of the cinematography.
It's-
That's so like
Yeah.
standard, sort of.
It's weird.
But I think they're trying to show her like an animal in captivity panicking,
yes,
like
yes.
with her eyes rolling and everything.
Oh no, it's perfect. I mean, it seems weird, but it fits so perfectly. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so then they brought down Grandpa.
Grandpa, so basically he's got to be like 175 years old,
Well,
right?
well, at this point we don't know. We think he's dead.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Well,
at this
yeah.
point, it seems like they brought this dead man down. They cut her finger and they stick it in his mouth, and that's when we realize he's not dead. He's sucking the blood from her finger.
And the scariest part of that scene is when he does it. You can't see me, but he starts like pumping his fists and his legs like a little baby sucking on a bottle.
Yeah.
Like it is so demented and twisted. It's perfect.
So-
like the person who thought of that to do that was genius, because that is like, oh my God, this is so
Oh,
bizarre.
So get this. So the fake blood for the gag wouldn't come out of the tube. So the actress playing Sally just moved her finger to make them really cut it.
There you go. You got to do what you got to do. I did not.
So-
I hadn't known that either.
Yeah, so they really cut her finger.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Hey,
For
you
that
got to.
scene. And also I learned that the guy who played Grandpa, he was actually not very old.
John Dugan or something. Yeah, he was in his 20s
Yeah.
or something. I don't know if he's still
And
around.
they spent 5 hours getting him into makeup. He hated it so much. He said, "I'm not doing this again."
Yeah.
And so they had to shoot all of his scenes at once, and it took 36 hours, including the 5 hours that it took to get him into makeup.
And so remember, keep in mind that this was a shoot in the middle of Texas, in the middle of summer,
blazing heat,
with the inside of a house with no air conditioning,
which
and
I think it might have been one of the hottest summers like of the time.
no air conditioning, and they had to cover the windows with heavy blankets to block the sun. So just try to imagine. I mean,
They're steaming.
the production of this movie was a massacre in and of itself, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But that's just part of the story. So anyway, keep going though.
Okay, so they've done the whole dinner thing, and then they get her and they put her over a metal tub, and they're gonna hit her head with a sledgehammer because
remember-
they're gonna kill her too.
Remember, Grandpa's the best it ever was.
Well, Grandpa's the best it ever was, so they're gonna let Grandpa hit her with the sledgehammer.
Kill her,
Show him
Grandpa,
how he
kill her,
does it.
Grandpa. Yeah.
And he keeps dropping it, which again, guys, remember, this is a real sledgehammer. The actor is aiming to drop it in the metal tub.
And so all they're doing
and
is
missing her head by like an inch.
Leatherface is just basically putting it in his hand and doing it for him, because this guy is he's like 100 and he's basically a vampire. He's like 175 years old, and he just stays basically alive by sucking blood every once in a while. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So he keeps dropping it, and while they're distracted, she gets loose, crashes through the window, and staggers away.
That scene, I love that scene, because you really at this point you're so lost and you're kind of squirming in your seat because like you just watched something so depraved. You don't really think about what time of day. And she busts out and you realize the sun is it's like 6 a.m. at this point.
Yeah, it's a shock when the sun is out.
And she looks up and there's that quick shot of her face and she's covered in blood, and you're just like, oh man, what just happened? Right.
Yeah, and so she busts through the window. So this is her second window that she crashes through.
That's right.
2 windows crash through, 1 dude killed by the titular chainsaw. So there you go. She staggers away. The Leatherface and the hitchhiker are chasing her. They've like almost get her, but she gets to the road and a truck comes and he runs over the hitchhiker.
Oh, when that scene is incredible.
And then Leatherface keeps coming and he chases her and the truck driver. And the truck driver throws a rock at him and Leatherface cuts his own leg.
He pulls out that giant pipe wrench and throws it.
Oh, is that what he threw?
Yes.
Okay.
He pulls it out of his cab. And that baby
threw. Okay.
That baby is like a giant pipe wrench for like a huge like 3-inch pipe for plumbing. That thing weighs probably 10, 15 pounds. And
he just
hurls
wings it at him.
Right at Leatherface, yep.
And Leatherface ends up cutting his own leg with the chainsaw, which
Real.
is the only time we ever see the chainsaw actually cutting anyone.
Yep. Yep.
And I learned how they did this. Do you know how they did this?
I don't know if that was an accident and they ended up keeping it or not. I don't remember.
So, no, they put a metal plate
Oh, that's
with
right.
a piece of meat and a blood
That's
bag
right.
over it.
That's right.
But the friction of the chainsaw hitting the metal plate burned his leg.
Mm-hmm. I think I do remember him, and I met him saying he got a burn, but I don't ever remember the whole story.
Yeah,
of it.
so he
Okay.
got burned because the friction of the chainsaw
Sure.
hitting the metal plate like burned him.
Sure, I bet. Yeah.
So when he was screaming in pain, he really was screaming in pain.
Yeah, sure.
So then the truck driver and she keep running, and a pickup truck comes by, and she gets in the back and rides away to freedom.
As she's deliriously laughing.
And she's
him to
deliriously
go.
laughing.
And then we have
Go,
this,
go. Oh my
yeah,
God,
yes.
go.
Oh my God. She's completely nuts. She's lost her mind. And then that lovely, beautiful final scene of Leatherface just spinning with the sunrise behind him and the Texas nothingness, and just wildly spinning his chainsaw for the last 15 seconds of the movie. And then
waving the chainsaw.
It's just iconic.
So let me ask you this,
Please.
because you know this better than I do. Is Sally the first final girl?
I have never really thought about
I
that.
think she potentially might be.
I think I want to say I wrote about her in my article on the final girl. Shameless promotion number 2 of this event. Please read that. Let's see. Let's think. Okay, 1974. That predates Halloween, which we love to talk about. Jamie Lee Curtis, of course. So that would predate her.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say Last House in the No, because she dies. What about not Spit on Your Grave, because that doesn't make sense. It is very possible that she is our very first.
I think she might be.
Yeah, maybe I did write that. I can't remember. Okay, because this movie is so old, and it was.
If she's not the first, she's very close, guys.
Oh, yeah.
Very close to the first. So this movie is worth watching, if for no other reason, for its historical significance in the horror genre. And it's worth watching for other reasons as well. It's
so many
a
reasons.
really it's a really good movie. Let me see. So what do we know about this movie? Oh, one interesting thing.
Do you really want me to start with that? 'Cause we've been here for a while.
I don't know. Well, let me say, so one interesting thing I learned was that Toby Hooper was trying to get a PG rating by not showing most of the actual violence.
Right.
But the ratings board kept giving it an X rating as he kept cutting things out until finally he cut enough to get it rated R, and he just gave up and released it.
Yeah, you have to.
He was like, good enough, and he just released it.
Yep.
The thing about the soundtrack I was going to say was apparently they had a little bit of music and they had the tuning fork thing, but most of the soundtrack was the sounds that animals would hear inside a slaughterhouse.
I was going to bring that up too. Yeah, and there's that one scene. Remember when they heard "Drop," remember this or not? It's quick, and it's that kind of just it's not a PSA, but it's like, hey, just watch this real fast. Mm-hmm. When they're in the van talking about the slaughterhouse, and they drive by it, and there's just B-roll basically. It's really fast, 2 seconds of a bunch of cows, then some more cows confined inside the pens. And then a shot, if you notice, of a cow drooling after I think it's been shot in the head. So it's real.
I'm glad I missed that. I'm really glad I missed that.
It's not like it's not like The Exorcist where it's like a one frame, but it's a couple seconds. It's just kind of that moment where your mind goes, oh, that's what actually happens in a slaughterhouse. People don't think about stuff like that.
I'm really glad I didn't catch on to that.
Yeah. So, that's some weird stuff that goes on in that movie.
Hooper said that the, quote, lack of sentimentality and the brutality of things made him believe that, quote, man was the real monster here, just wearing a different face. So I put a literal mask on the monster in my film.
Okay.
And he also said that in a way that he thought the heart of the film was about meat, that it's about the chain of life and killing sentient beings, which I like because I definitely saw the meat industry comparison in there. Like they are being slaughtered the way we slaughter animals for meat. as a vegetarian, I like that message.
Yeah.
I guess.
No,
it's just the idea that these humans are going through it like animals in a slaughterhouse.
Yep. So, where do I start with this movie? Right, there's a lot to jump into. So, to what you were saying right there, just your two themes of it.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's you talk about the slaughterhouse aspect. So it's these people that have been put out of work, basically, right? They don't have jobs anymore.
Yep.
But they don't know anything else. They don't know anything. So they're just still doing their job, and they're just kidnapping people and killing them and eating them. I mean, you look at when they found the house, see all those old cars that were underneath that army tarp? Those are all cars from people they have kidnapped and killed in the last God knows how long. So yeah, they don't have, their industry is dried up. It's all over. They have no ways of income. They have no job and they have no industry anymore. They're just doing what they know, and it's just it's so crazy to think about something like that. The other theme of that movie is this is just after Vietnam.
So I would say that sounds like capitalism did it to them.
Sure, yeah, and that's a theme that I think comes through. And keep in mind too is after Vietnam happened. So remember, people then were watching on the news every night footage of people being killed in war. Like this was a normal thing. Yeah. And so you had seen this stuff, and they're showing you a movie like of this stuff now. Like this is real stuff. It is I'm trying to think of the best way to just kind of dive in and dig through all of it the best I can. Yeah, those are two themes. Oh, the theme of the city versus the country, right?
Oh, right.
So for me, okay, so I first saw this movie when I was like 12 probably, right? I think it was one of those movies you rent with your friends or whatever at the video store. I remember seeing it in the cover. So that's what got me into it, too, was the title, obviously, the Texas Chain Saw Massacre. How do you not get interested in watching a movie with that title, right? Of course.
Sure.
Right. So I had to see it. It was a movie that I'd heard of. We didn't have the internet and things like that where we could find and hear about these things and read more about them. So, but we knew it was a movie that was like, legendary, basically. And I loved every part of it from the first time I saw it. But the thing about it is, remember, there's hardly any blood. You really don't see a lot of violence. It happens like behind those doors. And that's the thing where you can tell I've known throughout my life, I always can tell the person who's never seen this movie because they say what an awful movie it is because of the title. But they have no idea. They have no clue what it's actually.
I mean, this was my first time seeing it, and I have to say I was a little nervous because I thought it was going to be super gory.
That's right. That's the problem.
I was a little bit nervous about it.
Yep. But it's not. It's really not.
It's not. But in a way, that's more disturbing.
It is because like you said, when you close that,
it leaves it to your imagination.
That's
but
right.
also the violence is so. What's the word I'm looking for? It's so banal.
Yeah.
Like it's just they just do it.
Yeah.
It's not
balletic. Set up. There's no
or
build
fancy.
Yep.
Yeah. It just happens.
Boom. Yeah. You get hit in the head with a sledgehammer.
And then it's over. And then somebody's dead or knocked out or whatever, or hung on a hook. Like it just happens.
Right.
Which is terrifying.
Oh God. So I was sure after that. I mean, I totally was bought into. And until I finally went to Texas years ago, and I've been like twice now, but I was for years like, I am never going to Texas. I was convinced I was going to run out of gas, and I was going to get lost like there, and I was going to get chopped up by these psychos and fed to somebody. So, like, I had this, aversion of that, which is obviously nonsense and made up, of course. I knew that would actually never really happen. But it's that whole city versus, everything was pure this way, but now it's bad this way and back and forth. And now the country is actually the place where you want to avoid because of these crazy bastards that are out here. Production-wise, I mean, look, it looks like a documentary movie. It looks like someone grabbed a camera and went out there and shot this thing on 16 millimeter and didn't know much about what they were doing. But let me tell you, and there was a quote by Rob Zombie when he was talking about his movie one time, and he's talking about, I mean, is this like just a bunch of crazy people in this movie? Well, if it is, these crazy people sure can act. Because, I mean, you just don't know. Like, I mean, The Hitchhiker is amazing. These people are, I mean, just this whole setting, like I said, you see this cemetery, and it's so, I am not like a hot weather person. I don't care much for it. And this movie just oozes with just I feel like I need like a shower or a swimming pool after this movie. Because I feel that heat and that humidity and that stench of just the middle of summer in like the great deep part of Texas. I can't even imagine it, right? But that's what I love because it connects me. It makes me feel like I actually feel that part of that movie. Like it is so hot. It is so gross.
It's you can feel it as you're watching
that movie just puts it out and projects it onto you like that. It's unbelievable. You feel that stuff. There are some great shots in that movie. I know one is, take it in your meaning as you want, but the scene where Pam gets up from the swing and that tracking shot goes underneath her on the track and it follows her. It follows her from her behind and it goes up to the house and it's a beautiful shot. And a couple of shots where they pan past the gas station, and that shot where they follow her from behind, they recreated in Cabin Fever when the woman gets out of the boat and it follows her up the same way. I thought it was good homage to that. So the guy, what's his name? Daniel Pearl is a cinematographer, and he did the remake also, actually, trivia. But I think he does a well job with, I mean, these folks had no money. They had no real crew. If there's any lights, it's freaking house lamps. It's not like it's studio. It isn't film lighting.
No,
I mean,
what they did with what they
great.
had was amazing.
I mean, I'm telling you. I mean, it's got good audio. It's got great Foley and great sound. I mean, the sound design is excellent.
The sound design is
very good.
A lot of what makes it so scary.
And I mean, this movie to me is just scary. Like this is what scares me. You know, if you like you said those death scenes, if you went and set those up and blocked them and lit them and did them on a studio, they would look like crap, wouldn't they? Right? They wouldn't work. They work in this movie because they're just real. They're doing it. Right.
Well, I think that
you can't like try to make that look good.
Yeah, I think it's the style. It needs to look like somebody just grabbed a camera and filmed it. Or it wouldn't feel so real and disturbing. I'm going to say disturbing again because it's disturbing.
Yeah, it is. It is disturbing. This is one of the first movies that I really, once the resources became available through magazines and online, that I could finally start looking up and researching. And I used to read about this movie all the time because it was one of these movies they would call in London, in England, video nasties is the term they have, where they ban these movies and they don't want you to see it. This was like a taboo movie, but they had it at the video store, and it was like I had to watch this. And after I was like, I love it. This is so. I felt like I wasn't supposed to be watching this. You understand what I mean? This shouldn't be available to the public. This is like a snuff film almost kind of thing, right? Yeah, it's not real.
I can see that.
So that's what I thought, and I still love it. And it frightens me. It really does. It's intense. I haven't watched it in a long time. It's kind of committed to my memory, but I truly love it. The sequels are take them or leave them, quite frankly. The remake I was not sure about. I went and I saw it in the theater. I actually liked it a lot. And I actually loved the prequel. I thought that was great. It's really just violence for an hour and a half, basically, but I actually really enjoyed it. But yeah, this movie, like for me, is kind of it's one of my top 5 favorite horror, maybe top 3 movies ever in horror genre. I really love everything about it. I think it's so simple, but it's so great. And I was saying, if you want to go check it out, well, first of all, watch the Texas Chain Saw Massacre: A Family Portrait. Or The Shocking Truth, it's called. There's like 2 documentaries. They're very, very good.
Yeah.
Watch those. Gives you a good look into it. Like I said, sadly, everybody's gone, I think. I've met 2 folks from it. My poster is signed by Gunnar Hansen, who played Leatherface, which is awesome. I have it framed. And if you go to, so Austin, the cemetery's there. So the house is real. It was in bad...
It's been moved, right?
Yes, good call. It was in bad shape. And they found it, and they moved it, and they moved it into... Quick Hill, I think. I don't really know Texas that well. Quick Hill, it's called, and they restored it into like a restaurant. So
I think they restored the gas station too.
I'll get to that too. Good point.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Ooh.
No, you're right. So the house is a restaurant now, and I think you can actually eat in the living room where they have the dinner in the movie. So that would be so when I get down there at some point, I'm going to do all that. I'm going to do a little road trip. Yep, the gas station is back up. I think they have an old soda machine, just like the old one in the movie. Hopefully that guy is there with the bucket that comes to wash the car too. That'd be great. He's awesome.
So great.
And you can go visit. I found out where the house is from the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre, so you can go see that as well. So yeah,
Okay.
good tour to go see. Sadly, I haven't made it down. I've been to Texas just not to go do those things. But I mean, this movie to me is the themes are a lot of themes in it. We talked about the Vietnam thing. We talked about the country. We talked about meat and like the industry, and those are three things for me.
Capitalism.
Totally.
Yeah, it's got a lot to it. If you watch it
Supernatural
thinking about those things, it's really. I don't know if he meant all of those things, but it really does come through. Oh, the meat industry thing.
Yeah.
Apparently Guillermo del Toro said he stopped eating meat for a while after he watched this movie.
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I wasn't around when it first came out, obviously, but it affected me, but not in that way. But I could totally see that.
I would
Totally.
say that I am confirmed in my vegetarianism.
And after that, no doubt.
It does not make me want to stop being a vegetarian
No.
at all.
I cannot imagine that it would do that.
I think the one other thing we should make sure that we let everyone know is that all the contrary to the opening voiceover,
Oh, yes.
this is not a true story.
No, it's not. Sadly, no.
However, it is loosely based on the Wisconsin
So
killer,
thank you. I was gonna...
Ed Gein.
Okay, so I'm
don't know how to say it.
more than happy. One of my specialties is psychos as well, so I'm more than happy to talk about that.
Yes.
So
he's a creepy
Oh
fuck.
boy. So Toby Hooper, I guess. So one of the stories is he got the idea for the movie also from standing in line during like Christmas season, getting angry as could pot. The line's too long. He's going crazy. He's happened to be by the power tools, and we all think about this, no matter how crazy it sounds. We all say, we looked at a chainsaw. Wow, that'd get me out of here pretty quickly if I carved all these people up. So anyway, that's one idea. But apparently he had some Wisconsin relatives. So anyway, here's the deal. Ed Gein was a interesting man who lived in Plainfield, Wisconsin, which is like dead central Wisconsin. And he was pretty much a grave robber and a necrophiliac. And what he did was he did odd jobs around the area. No one knew him well. Everyone knew he was weird. But he lived with a mother who was crazy religious, sheltered him he lived with them his whole lives. He never really knew much about the outside world. She said every woman was evil. She had him totally under control. She died, and his world ended, basically. He kept his house, and he kept her room like the way it was, right? He killed a couple women in the town. He confessed to the murders. It was very strange. The thing about this guy was he was still like the gentlest, nicest man. He wasn't violent,
He
right?
was also a body snatcher.
Yeah, pretty much. He was the boogeyman. He really is the boogeyman. So anyway, his relatives told Toby Hooper these stories. So here's a couple things. So remember the chair she's tied to made of arms, human arms?
Yep.
The police found his house. They found the house of horrors. They found the women gutted out like deer hanging in a shed. They found soup bowls made of skulls. They found one woman's head in a bag with tacks stuck in her face. Belts made of nipples and leather from skin. So all the things you see in the movie, these are all things that actually that bone room was probably a room Ed Gein had in his house.
Yeah,
Remember,
or similar something.
Also, and of course, they found his mother's room boarded up, pristine as the day she died when they found the house, by the way. He didn't mess with that. He left that alone. So yeah, all the stuff you saw, that was what Ed Gein did. Now, Ed Gein is the inspiration for Leatherface. He's the inspiration for Psycho. Silence of the Lambs. And you name the movie. So he was the first real-life boogeyman. Now, of course, we know all these psychos that have existed ever since him. But he was really the first one to emerge.
So he was active in the 50s.
Yes, he was caught. They finally caught him in the late 50s for everything he had done. And he lived his life out in a mental hospital and died in the 80s, I think.
Yeah, he's pretty terrifying.
He really actually is the boogeyman. So, yeah, all that stuff in that house of horrors, like as disturbing it is to watch on film, the police found the house was real. They found that in Wisconsin in his house. So yeah, thank you for mentioning. I almost had totally forgotten about that.
Yeah, can't forget that one.
Yeah, so that's crazy. If you ever want to read stuff about him, do so at your own risk. But very crazy story. So yeah, it's loosely based on a lot of that stuff too. And then was there something else I was going to mention? Oh, there's a great song by White Zombie that mentions.
Is this the second time in a row you've gotten to bring up White Zombie?
I think it is.
Yes.
I think the song is called More, Please. I think the song is called Creature of the Wheel. And I think in the song, they keep mentioning in the chorus, who will survive and what will be left of them, which, of course, is the tagline from the Texas Chain Saw Massacre. So.
Yeah, so there's this other song that it really reminds me of. By the Talking Heads, it goes, Psycho Killer.
Yeah.
Qu'est-ce que c'est?
Yes. Great song by Talking Heads. I think that was in a Simpsons. I think that was in a Simpsons episode one time too. Yes. We need to incorporate more. We need to incorporate more Talking Heads into.
Run, 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 run,
Yep.
run away.
Well, if we ever review American Psycho, I'm sure Talking Heads is in that movie somewhere, isn't it?
I'm sure it's got to be.
It's got to be on the soundtrack somewhere.
It's got to be.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but it's got to be if it.
So yeah, you know.
Yeah, we do have to do that movie. That's a pretty iconic movie too.
Oh, I love it. Anyway, yeah, this film has a very very good impact on me, and I love it a lot. And I went to the Museum of Modern, so they made it. The Museum of Modern Art makes a statement, I guess, or whatever they say, that they then add into their collection films every once in a while, you know. And they decided to add this movie to their permanent collection recently, and recently meaning like 10, 15 years ago, I don't know. And I went in there last time I went to MoMA, and I was walking around the reception desk or whatever, and when the woman was asking if we can help with anything, and I said, "Do you have the actual print of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre here? Because I want to see it." And she didn't even know what I was talking about, and I said, "Just forget it, never mind."
Oh, poor sweet little lady.
Because they keep all these reels, like I think in a warehouse somewhere in like middle of nowhere in New York, I guess, with their, and every once in a while they screen them, I guess. But for those of you out there that think it's a depraved movie. Obviously, Museum of Modern Art disagrees with you because it's part of their collection. So that's usually my argument to folks who think these movies are trash when I tell them that. I tell them I tell them garbage doesn't go to museums of modern art. So
no, doesn't go to the MoMA.
Nope, doesn't go to MoMA.
So yeah, so let's see. Is there anything else we've said? I think we covered pretty much everything we
like
could.
I said, I could
there.
go forever and ever and ever, but. Yeah, watch the sequels at your own risk. If you want to, you can watch.
But you said the remake's not that bad.
I enjoy both the remake and the prequel very much. Yes, I do.
Okay.
Now, if you want to, watch the Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation, only for the fact that it was not their first, but one of their first.
Oh, yes.
Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger, both are in this movie. And it's like one of their first two movies they had ever made at this point. I think McConaughey.
I definitely am gonna watch that.
I think McConaughey had done Dazed and Confused at this point, because Dazed and Confused was 93. Maybe he had just done that, but I don't know that Renee Zellweger had done anything yet. So yeah,
I definitely am gonna watch that just for the chuckle factor.
It's a bad movie, but take the sequels, like I said, at your own risk. So, but the legend goes on forever. Leatherface. I mean, that's always the conversation of. You know, Leatherface versus Freddy or Leatherface versus Ash or someone like that. Who would you want?
Yeah.
Like, who are you most scared of? And I'm most scared of Michael Myers, but a close second is Leatherface because that dude is no joke.
He's scary, man.
He's pretty terrifying.
Know. He's scary.
Because he's straight up human. He's not like, a ghoster. I mean, this dude is like a human being.
Yeah, he just seems more real because he's a human being. He seems more likely to actually exist. All right, on that note, before we go, if you enjoyed the podcast, please rate and review us on iTunes or wherever you're listening so more people can find us. And send your movie suggestions, your thoughts on movies we've watched so far, whatever you want to tell us, really. Send it to... Yeah, anything. If you want to tell us about, your dogs. Hey, dog pictures? I'll take dog pictures all day, guys.
Send us corgi
Especially
photos.
Dogs dressed up in Halloween costumes. We're getting close. Let's do that.
What do we want? We want photos of corgis and Boston Terriers, right?
Corgis and Boston Terriers. Really, I'll take anything. Dogs.
Yeah,
I love dogs. Yeah. I'll take any dog pictures. So send all those to us at thescarymovieproject@gmail.com. See ya.
Later.
The Scary Movie Project podcast is produced by Tara Garwood and Matt Lolich. Learn more at thescarymovieproject.com.